Hi from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Live, India's voice to the world. I'm Preeti Kaur. Coming up in the next 30 minutes. US Secretary of State Antony Blinken calls for US-China to manage differences responsibly as he begins his 3-day visit to Shanghai and Beijing. Also meets with business leaders and students. US acknowledges it has secretly shipped significant number of long-range missiles to Ukraine in recent weeks, and Ukraine has now used them twice. Israel says it is moving ahead with its planned military operation in the southern Gaza city of Rafah. UN Gaza aid envoy calls on Israel to take swifter action to allow a sustained flow of assistance into the Gaza Strip. Last date for filing of nominations for constituencies in Phase 4 of India's general elections. India all set to vote in the second phase of polls on Friday. 88 out of 543 seats to India's lower house of parliament will go to polls on April 26th. US Secretary of State Antony Blinken began his 3-day China visit with Shanghai, where he held a meeting with Shanghai Communist Party Secretary Chen Jining and stressed on the importance of a responsible US-China relationship.
We have an obligation for our people and indeed an obligation for the world to manage the relationship between our two countries responsibly. The direction from President Biden and President Xi was to continue to build those lines of communication, to sustain them, and again, to deal directly with our differences as we also seek to build cooperation.
He also spent some time walking the city of Shanghai with US Ambassador to China, Nicholas Burns. He also greeted some American tourists along a river walkway, offering a view of Shanghai's modern skyline. The visit comes mere hours after the US Senate passed a bill that includes new funding for Taiwan and TikTok divestment or ban bill. Meanwhile, China has cautioned the US against supporting Taiwan, saying strengthening military collusion between the two will only escalate tensions and the risk of conflict in the Taiwan Strait.
Strengthening military coalition between the United States and Taiwan will not bring security to Taiwan, nor can it save Taiwan from the doomed fate of independence, but will only push up tensions and the risk of conflict and confrontation in the Taiwan Strait, and will ultimately be like lifting a rock and stoning one's own foot.
As the Russia-Ukraine conflict continues, US claims that Ukraine sustained its offensive against Russia with uninterrupted support of secretly shipped missiles. US National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan confirmed that significant number of long-range missiles were recently shipped to Ukraine and that it has now used them twice against Russia. Adding further, he said that US will send more of it for Ukraine. The Pentagon initially opposed the long-range missile deployment, fearing the loss of the missiles from the country's stockpile, which would hurt the US military readiness.
I'm able to confirm, as you've heard from others, that in February, the President directed his team to provide Ukraine with a significant number of ATACMS missiles for use inside Ukraine's sovereign territory. That shipment started moving in March as part of the PDA that the President authorized on March 12th, and those missiles have arrived in Ukraine. We will send more now that we have additional both authority and money.
US President Joe Biden signed a $95 billion war aid measure with assistance for Ukraine, Israel and Taiwan after a months-long Republican battle. The bill, signed into law on Wednesday, includes $61 billion in aid to Ukraine and $26 billion for Israel, as well as $1 billion in humanitarian assistance to Gaza and $8 billion to counter China's military might. Biden's announcement marks an end to the long 6-month battle with Republicans in Congress over urgently needed assistance for Ukraine. As Israel-Hamas conflict continues, Israeli troops are moving ahead with its planned military operation in the southern Gaza city of Rafah. The army is prepared to remove civilians from the conflict-struck region, though Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's government gave no timeline on this. Earlier, Israeli warplanes attacked the northern Gaza Strip for a second day on Wednesday. At the White House, U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan said that Washington was still talking with Israel about Rafah, and officials from both the countries are expected to meet again in person soon.
What I can tell you is the U.S. position has been clear on this. I've stated it from this podium. The president has spoken to it. And we've had very detailed discussions with the Israelis as recently as last week by secure video to talk through not just our concerns, but our view that there is a different way to go about dealing with the Hamas threat in Rafah and succeeding in ensuring the long-term defense and security of Israel. We are still in those conversations, and we will still continue to press our perspective.
Meanwhile, United Nations have urged Israel for a swifter action to allow sustained flow of assistance into the Gaza Strip. A top UN aid official on Wednesday said that Israel should take further definitive and urgent steps as aid workers needed safe access to and throughout Gaza. Israel pledged nearly 3 weeks ago to improve aid access, including reopening of the Erez crossing into northern Gaza and allowing the temporary use of Ashdod port in southern Israel. The volume of aid allowed to enter Gaza has increased.
At this perilous moment, President Biden has called on Israel to take a series of specific, concrete, and measurable steps to address this humanitarian crisis, protect civilians from harm, and ensure the safety of all aid workers. Israel must do more to prevent civilian casualties, immediately. And President Biden has made clear that U.S. policy will be determined by our assessment of Israel's immediate and sustained action on these steps.
Meanwhile, Senior Humanitarian and Reconstruction Coordinator for Gaza announced on Wednesday that the operationalization of the UN 2720 mechanism for Gaza will start in the coming days. She added that she has informed Israel on the operationalization of the mechanism as per the resolution.
The mechanism will initially be applicable to the Cyprus and Jordan routes, respectively. Technical consultations will shortly be finalized with Egypt on this route. I've informed the government of Israel on the operationalization of the mechanism as per the resolution. The operationalization of the mechanism will allow for pipeline prioritization, predictability, visibility, and tracking of supplies to Gaza. As the resolution intended, the mechanism is designed to facilitate and support the work of all humanitarian partners on the ground.
Former President Donald Trump has again claimed that the court-ordered silence in his hush money case is unconstitutional. Prosecutors accuse that he broke the gag rule 11 times. Judge Hua Merkin has not decided on the punishment yet. DD India's William Denslow reports on the latest developments from New York.
In a social media post, Donald Trump said the gag order against him in the hush money case was unprecedented and part of a trial that's rigged against him. It's claimed the Republican presidential frontrunner has repeated regularly during the trial. Donald Trump faces 34 felony counts of falsifying business records, tied to allegations that he paid hush money to a porn star in the lead up to the 2016 presidential election. Trump denies the charges and on Wednesday again claimed that the legal proceedings are a political witch hunt aimed at hurting his chances of regaining the presidency in November. Taking to Truth Social, the former president ought to accuse 2 other New York judges who presided over several of his recent civil cases of being corrupt and working for the Democrats. Court was out of session on Wednesday, but witness David Pecker is expected to be back on the stand on Thursday. The former publisher of the National Enquirer alleges that he coordinated with Donald Trump to prevent potentially politically damaging stories from hitting the headlines in the lead-up to the 2016 election. Trump's legal team say their client has committed no crimes. William Denslow in New York, reporting for DD India.
The U.S. Supreme Court is hearing arguments in a case on Thursday that could have a major impact on the next presidential election. It will consider whether Donald Trump is immune from prosecution concerning criminal election interference cases against him. Let's take a look at Caroline Malone's report on this.
A potentially pivotal moment is happening for former President Donald Trump at the Supreme Court on Thursday. That's when the top court's 9 justices will hear arguments over whether he has presidential immunity for being tried in election interference cases. Now, Trump's lawyers are likely to argue that he should have immunity over official acts that he was conducting while he was in the White House. And that's in reference to some of the events leading up to and on the day of January 6th, the Capitol attack, when mobs stormed into the Congress to try and stop the election being officially declared for Joe Biden, of course, the current president. Now, the prosecution team, being led by Special Counsel Jack Smith, says he doesn't have immunity. There is some precedence for immunity for presidents in the United States, but more related to civil cases rather than criminal. And so they argue this case should go ahead. Their wider federal criminal case against Trump can't go ahead, though, until the Supreme Court issues an opinion. Now, that might not happen until the end of June, but we could get some sense about which way the justices are leaning when we hear how they question both Trump's lawyers and the prosecution team on Thursday. And of course, the opinion and the result from the Supreme Court could have an impact on this year's November presidential election, which is a likely rematch between Biden and Trump, with voters basically deciding whether they want Trump, who could at that point have been part of a number of criminal cases, to be back in the White House, or they want the incumbent, Joe Biden. Caroline Malone in Washington for DD India.
A grand jury has charged 18 people with allegedly taking part in an Arizona fake elector scheme to re-elect the then U.S. President Donald Trump in 2020. The court papers further list a former U.S. President Donald Trump as an unindicted co-conspirator. The indictment stems from efforts to reverse Democrat Joe Biden's victory in several states in 2020 based on Republican Trump's false claims that he had been re-elected. Trump lawyer and former New York Mayor Rudy Giuliani is among those indicted. The indictment also identifies one defendant as chief of staff in 2020, the position Mark Meadows held in the Trump White House at that time. The false elector scheme figures in 2 criminal trials in Washington, D.C. and Georgia, charging Trump with unlawfully seeking to overturn Biden's victory. Bangladesh has repatriated 288 members of Myanmar security forces on Thursday who had sought refuge in the country amid ongoing fighting in Myanmar between the junta troops and the rebel fighters Arakan Army. Bangladesh officials said that the repatriation involved a carefully staged handover of the individuals to the Myanmar Border Guard Police. This incident marks the second recent repatriation of Myanmar personnel to their homeland from Bangladesh, following the February 16th return of 330 officials. A look at other updates making it to the headlines from across the world. A week-long conference on renewable energy began in Nepal on Wednesday. The focus is on sustainable and renewable energy, Nepal's irrigation sector, among other issues. The conference would look for collaborative strategies for climate resilience at a time of worsening climate change. Energy Week targets stakeholders ranging from policymakers to practitioners. The Retail Summit 2024, an international platform for problems and solutions related to retail, is taking place in Dubai. Now, this year's event focuses on themes like artificial intelligence, data, digital transformations, and more. The 2-day event focuses on understanding current consumer trends and how modern technologies can enhance customer experiences. Austrian symbolist painter Gustav Klimt's portrait of Miss Lisa sold at an auction on Wednesday for $32 million. The painting, featuring a young woman, was left unfinished when the Austrian artist died in 1918. A pre-Roman necropolis characterized by rich grave goods was discovered during excavation in southern Italy. A total of 88 burials were excavated over an area of approximately 13,000 square meters, with male tombs containing weapons and with rich sets of bronze ornaments found in the female tombs. A short break ahead on DD India Live, but after the break, Army establishment in India's Pune city trains religious teachers from different faiths serving in the Indian Army. Sunrisers Hyderabad will look for a win when they host Royal Challengers Bengaluru in the IPL fixture today. It was a jump touching the skies. Japanese Olympic champion Ryu Kobayashi registers a world record jump in Iceland.
Complex issues, hidden agendas, twists and turns, strategic games. We think all dots are linked. We just need to connect them. Join me every week as I connect the dots to unravel hidden designs in statecraft, mysteries, and decode issues that matter to you. Watch Connecting the Dots with me at these times on DD India.
Welcome back after the break. You're watching DD India Live and I'm Preeti. In more updates, the CEO of JP Morgan Chase & Company, Jamie Dimon, has lauded Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi for his achievements in the country. Speaking at a webinar organized by the Economic Club of New York, he highlighted Prime Minister Narendra Modi's unbelievable job in uplifting India. Praising the reforms by the current government in the recent past, JP Morgan's Dimon noted that India has an unbelievable education system and also unbelievable infrastructure.
Modi has done an unbelievable job in India. I mean, literally, and I know, the liberal press here, they beat the hell out of him. He's taken 400 million people out of poverty. When we go lecture Modi about, when they want trade with us, but we lecture literally, and I go to these countries soon after a lot of our government officials there. It's like we're fantasizing about, climate and labor and how we think they should be running their country. He has 400 million people without toilets. Really? And we're lecturing them how to do things? They've put in this unbelievable, every citizen by hand or by eyeball or by finger is recognized. They open bank accounts for 700 million people. The transfer payments are going through. They've got an unbelievable education system, unbelievable infrastructure. They're lifting up that whole country because this one man is he's tough. But I think you have to be tough to break that down, and he's breaking down some of the bureaucracy. They have, I think it's 29 states or something like that, but they all had completely different, it's almost like Europe, they have completely different tax systems, which leads to enormous corruption. He's breaking all that stuff down. And so, there are examples of people who have just turned these things around, and we need a little bit more of that here.
All right, let's now get to the latest on the world's largest democratic election in India. Preparations are in full swing for the second phase of Lok Sabha elections, for which voting will be held on Friday. Elections will be held in 88 Lok Sabha seats in 13 states and union territories, including the remaining part of the outer Manipur Lok Sabha constituency. Polling for the Betol parliamentary constituency of Madhya Pradesh, which was scheduled in the second phase, will now be held in the third phase due to the demise of BSP candidate. A total of 1,198 candidates from 13 states and union territories, along with 4 candidates from the outer Manipur Lok Sabha constituency, are in the fray in this phase. Campaigning for the second phase of elections ended on Wednesday, while it continues for the third phase. The BJP is set to raise the pitch for the 2024 Lok Sabha poll battle, with Prime Minister Narendra Modi's 32 rallies and roadshows across 10 states in the next 10 days. Prime Minister and senior BJP leader Narendra Modi addressed a rally in Morena Lok Sabha constituency, which is a bastion of the BJP. Also, it will go to polls in the third phase on May 7th. Prime Minister will also address election rallies in Agra, Aula and Shahjahanpur Lok Sabha seats of Uttar Pradesh. Senior BJP leader Rajnath Singh is also holding public meetings in Etawah and Khiri in the state of Uttar Pradesh today. Senior BJP leader Amit Shah will hold a public meeting in Medak Lok Sabha constituency in the southern state of Telangana. He will also hold a public meeting in Bolangir Lok Sabha constituency in the coastal state of Odisha. Chief Minister of Andhra Pradesh Y.S. Jagan Mohan Reddy will file his nomination from Pulivendula Assembly constituency. Samajwadi Party leader Akhilesh Yadav will also file his nomination from the state of Uttar Pradesh. Today is the last day for filing of nomination papers for the fourth phase. Till Wednesday, 19 candidates submitted 21 nomination papers. So far, 83 nomination papers have been filed by 58 candidates. The nomination papers will be scrutinized on Friday, which is April 26th. Candidates who have filed nomination papers will be able to withdraw their names till Monday, April 29th. Voting for the fourth phase will take place on Monday, May 13th. While counting of votes in all phases will take place on Tuesday, June 4th. Darjeeling, the beautiful West Bengal seat with hills and plains, tea gardens to boot, prepares to vote in the second phase. Now that the silent period has commenced, poll personnel are making their way to the polling stations. International borders with Bangladesh, Bhutan and Nepal have been sealed and measures are being put in place to ensure free and fair elections. DD India's Mark Lin reports from Darjeeling.
Darjeeling, known for its finest teas, as this tea garden worker shows us, leaves that every tea connoisseur knows are the very best. Tea among the hills and the sunsets, with a slight nip in the air, draws tourists in large numbers to the hills of Darjeeling. The people of the hills are mostly Gorkha and have been seeking more autonomy in their administration. That continues to be one of the key underlying issues in this election. With the silence period having commenced, polling personnel bound for remote polling stations, Dadagaon, Ramam Forest and Samanden begin their journey to these booths, which are in part inaccessible by road. They check all their equipment before leaving.
They will have to travel another 26 kilometers. Out of this 26 kilometers, 7 kilometers will be by foot. We are providing porters for them, and then any other accommodation that is provided for them is already there. And special facilities we are providing is we have arranged for location stay for them, including with SSGs and tagging has already been done.
Staff attached to all other 1,996 polling stations will begin setting up their polling booths on the 25th of April, a day before the election. Final preparations for dispatch of EVMs are being made in the strong room. Every detail of equipment being registered and marked. Elsewhere, voters are beginning to reflect on the electoral exercise and their right to vote, as another toy train leaves on its iconic trip with happy tourists in tow. We asked a few voters about what's on their mind.
Election will come and go, but we'll see our nation is doing good. That's why we're going to vote who is doing such a good, because there's lots of political parties who have taken participation in Lok Sabha election, but we're voting who are doing good in this country.
See, this is my right to vote. I have to vote. No matter who I choose to vote for, this is my own decision.
My child is educated but doesn't have a job. They sell tea with me, help me, but there is no actual work. Nobody sees us. We'll have to see who will help us. No one looks after us. We'll have to see who in the government will help us. We'll make the government, and the government has to make us.
At the core of this election is the issue of development. Development means different things for different people, but what it really means is that every voter wants a better future for themselves and their families. With cameraman Piyush Vardhan Verma, this is Mark Lin, DD India, Darjeeling.
The temperature is soaring every hour, but the voters of East Tripura say that nothing will dampen their enthusiasm to go out and vote. Here's a report by DD India's Deepika Mahato.
DD India has now reached the Teliamura region of East Tripura. It is indeed very hot here. You can see the flags behind me because a rally took place over here. But now the space and land is empty because the temperature is rising as the hours passes and people are going back to their homes. Let's now talk to some of the local people here. How are they planning to beat the heat amid the Lok Sabha elections?
The East Tripura district is all set to go to the polls on the 26th of April and the temperature is rising hour by hour. While the residents of East Tripura usually go back home in afternoon time, but on the voting day, they say scorching heat won't stop them. We went out to the voters and asked how are they going to beat the heat on the polling day.
We will go and vote on 26th April. Weather keeps on changing, that's not the concern. We will vote on the polling day.
People have got jobs here in East Tripura. We have seen a lot of development in the last few years. Nothing will stop us from voting. We will vote.
Inside the village area, we met a family who sells small items like biscuits, chips, etc. They say that weather is a regular phenomena, but parliamentary voting happens once in every 4 years.
Heat is not an issue. We will go in the morning to cast our vote. Voting is important.
So there you heard from the voters as well as the party leaders of both the main parties here in Tripura East District that whatever the weather may be, their enthusiasm for putting across the vote for polling on the 26th of April would not be affected by any of the climatic conditions. Be it summer, be it winter, be it a rainy season, the voters have always gone to vote and this time also they will go and vote in large numbers. With camera person Kumar Datta, this is Deepika reporting for DD India from Teliamara district, East Tripura.
Institute of National Integration, a one-of-a-kind army establishment in India's Pune city, trains religious teachers from different faiths serving in the Indian Army. The institute trains them to perform multi-dimensional roles and be counselors for the soldiers of the Indian Army. And up next, we'll get you updates from the world of sports. In cricket, Royal Challengers Bengaluru will take on the in-form Sunrisers Hyderabad in the 41st match of the IPL today. Faf Duplessis-led RCB are at the bottom of the table with just one win in 8 matches and need to win all the matches to have a glimpse of the playoffs. In other news, Japanese Olympic champion Ryu Kobayashi soared to a world record of 291 meters ski jump in Akureyri in Iceland on Wednesday. The 27-year-old reached a top speed of 107 kilometers per hour at takeoff and was suspended in the air for 8 seconds. All right, that's it in this edition of DD India Live. But let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on social media platforms. And for all those on the go, you can log on to the latest news and updates from India and across the world on DD India mobile app. This app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code on your screens to download it. And we'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Preeti signing off, and from all of us in Delhi, thanks for watching DD India Live.